I'm Jerry Shen. Entered. I'm a class of '58. Entered in '54. And your first question here. I came over here in the United States in 1949. Reason for that, we want to escape the communism who was coming into Shanghai. My father was here studying, not finishing his doctor. He's doing residency at SLUH University. And he interrupted his residency and came back to China and got my sister and my mother out. And we came to the United States in 1949, and we were the only Chinese here. So the first question is, am I the first Chinese at SLUH? Yes. Even in 1948, 54, I mean, we were the only Chinese in the area, at least students. It was never a question of anywhere else. Dad always, coming from China, where educational opportunities are very limited, we were always wanted the best. He went to the best school in China, in Shanghai, the St. John's, which was affiliated with SLUH University. And that's how he ended up here at St. Louis U for his residency. In fact, when I went to St. Louis U High, I didn't even know there was a CBC or any other school. The Schmet wasn't here then. And so we're always going to be St. Louis U High. And so, when I went there, I wasn't the best student there. I started in class B. They used to have by grades, A, B, C, D, and so forth. And by the second year, I was an A. But I knew there were a lot of people who were much smarter than I was. But when my kids are there, they finished the best in their class, most of them. So it's true that every generation should be better than the one that's before that. And so that was St. Louis U High. I like to talk about some very fond memories of St. Louis U High. I think the person that helped me most was Tom Curry, who was the moderator for Bellarmine Club Speech Club. When I came here, I was the only Chinese. I mean, my sister was the only two Chinese here. So we felt very strange. At least I did. And I was introverted to start with. And Tom Curry, with the speech club, got me outside of myself for a while. And not only did I learn how to speak, I learned how to analyze and to think. I was on the debate team. I was on the extemporaneous speaking team. And in fact, nowadays, when I plan to write something or write a speech or a paper, I still pace up and down the hall, which is a habit I picked up from high school. And so that's some memories from high school. In those days, the A class had both Latin and Greek. So we had 2 years of Greek. None of the modern languages, which would be a lot more useful. So that was that, and after we graduated in '58. By the way, that was the year we won state championship in basketball, and I was there for all the games. I am a very poor athlete myself, but I always wanted to compete, and I always loved football and basketball and all the other sports. And so one of the things I think I did in my days at SLUH High is I made myself better at classes as a compensation for not being able to contribute on the sports teams. Something tells me I do something for SLUH High. And so that's my history of St. Louis High. And when it came to my sons going to school, and I remember my wife and I having the discussion, and we know St. Louis High was very, very competitive. And my wife was worried about that. It'd be too competitive for our kids. So I had no reservations about sending them there, even though we could have sent them to Burroughs or to Country Day. It was a lot more expensive for Burroughs than Country Day, but they did very well in St. Louis High, both of them. And I think that springboarded them to a very successful careers they're having now. Francis is a full professor of law at University of Minnesota, I mean. And John has got a large grant doing research in cancer at MD Anderson in Houston. So they have also done very well, better than their fathers. And so that's what I have memory of St. Louis High. I have memory also of some reunions from St. Louis High. And one I have a memory of was Bob Kelly. He was, I think, the smartest guy in our class, but he was a cut-up. I mean, he was just he would be the ones that would have fake, driver's IDs so we can drink. He also be the one who would drive past a police car and says, "Bang, bang, you're dead." And I remember him doing those things. And he made it to Caltech. And he flunked out of Caltech, or at least he didn't do well at Caltech. Not because he wasn't smart enough, because he just didn't, wasn't socially adjusted right. And I remember him coming back to St. Louis High reunion, and really saying how important St. Louis High was to him. And that really was moving experience for me. And one other experience was, was maybe 20 years reunion, or even the 25th reunion. A classmate of mine, Jim Bangard, he was in grade school with me at St. Joan of Arc. And he came to me and talked with me and said, when you came to St. Joan of Arc, we couldn't, my family and I didn't really know who you were. I was the best student there until you came along. And I was the best student then and it was extremely meaningful for me, because I think it was a sense of, I never really sensed overt discrimination, but I sensed being strange and people not knowing how to relate to me, of not having confidence that I do really belong. And that's probably because, the fact that I was different, and the fact that I was very introverted, and I was not willing to make overtures to reach out. So that was that's my thinking of experience at St. Louis High. Of course, I remember Coach Hannick. I remember Father Disler, who taught Latin. And if you look like you're not paying attention, he will call you to recite. So we pay attention. And so there were really lots of very good moments St. Louis High. I think I grew up a little more and socially more. Sure, I was a SLUH of 62, and during that time when I was here, since this is the right after election, President Kennedy was the first person I voted for. And when I was at Harvard, the year he was assassinated, I was in a lab. And I knew something was up when they played the national anthem on the radio when I was at the lab. And so that was a moment I really remembered. And so after Harvard, I was a year teaching in Maryville, and then I went to University of Wisconsin. Again, they accepted me with open arms. And I was there for quite a few years. In fact, 6 years to do my PhD. And the reason is I found contract bridge. So I played a lot of bridge and didn't hurry up getting through Wisconsin. And they weren't too hurry about pushing me either. So after the coming out of Wisconsin, I went to Ralston Purina for 28 years. And after 28 years there, I taught 10 years at SLU Edwardsville. Again, they accepted me right away, and that was a very nice fit. I finally decided to retire because I didn't want to make that 45-minute drive from here to SIU anymore. After being retiring, I become a bridge player. I play a lot of bridge. And of course, I do a lot of Bridget and I have done a lot of things together. One of which is to do marriage work. Bridget does marriage education, and I go along with her for that. And we've written 2 books to help people with the spirituality of marriage, to integrate their practical relationship with the spiritual relationships. And of course, we model on the spiritual relationship on Ignatian spirituality. So both of us were very much formed in Ignatian spirituality, and we've also been very formed in marriage skills. So that was what our work, up until fairly recently. She still does it, but fairly recently now, I'm quite a bit out of that so much. And so the main things I do is I work in the yard. I do my bridge. We play about maybe 4 times a week. It keeps the mind going. That's mainly where I am now. You talked about innovation or creativity, I think, or something like that. Something was a question that was
Oh yeah, so
yes.
The theme of the issue of the magazine is creativity.
Creativity, yes, yes, and I thought about what leads to creativity. And for me, I think the first you have to have the vision. You have to see what you want to create in your mind, and you have to. And if you look at all the people who did the major discoveries, the chemists, the physicists, and so forth, way before they have the evidence to prove it, they had a thought as to what they want to prove. Okay, they've seen some relationships that they think what they prove, and also, I think creativity comes out of necessity, in a sense. You need to do something, but you also to have, besides the thought, the vision, you have to have the courage to go ahead and put that vision. You have to have enough courage and persistence that you are right. Okay, you can't doubt yourself. Otherwise, you will stop short. And I had to give you an example. Let me give you an example about my father. He was here in the United States doing his residency, and he hears that the communists are driving across the north of China towards Shanghai. And so he immediately says, we got to get the family out. And that means getting us visas, getting us passports, and he did it all from here. And he sold his car and came back and got us out. And we came out on 1 week after the communists took Shanghai. The plane that we chartered to take us out didn't come on the night where the communists came in. A week later, we had a fortunate, the last ship to leave Shanghai that year, the President Wilson. And so we managed to get on that ship. Otherwise, I would have been a Red Guard today. And so the thing about creativity, is my father saw enough that we were in trouble, and so he took the chance to do it. And one of the things I think being my age, I'm 81 now. I like to teach young people like that. And one of the things that my father taught me was what he called the calculated risk. What he meant by that is to compare the risk with the reward. If the reward is great enough, then any risk is worthwhile. And this explains, for instance, why all these immigrants are coming to the United States, going through all kinds of barriers that Trump administration have put on, is because that the situation at home is untenable. And so anything is better than a situation at home. So you take all the risks with no guarantees, because they know if they stay home, the risk is even greater. So this then, I think, if you're teaching people and I think this is the message from SLUH High, to believe in yourself. Believe you can do great things. Visualize the great things that you can do. And at the same time, visualize what service you can do for the people around you and the people with you in those great things that you can do. In order to be a man for others, you have to be a man for yourself first. And so this is, I think, is a lifetime of what I think God has taught me. I'm a very deeply spiritual person, and so was my Bridget. And the message that I've gotten is that God has been with me all the time, and I'm just learning where His glory is, where His goodness is, where His blessings are. And I know I'll keep on learning. And it started with SLUH High. And it continued. And I said before that I was at Harvard for 2 years, and after 2 years, last year, that year I was there, I had all kinds of physics courses and math courses which I didn't like. And because of that, I was asked not to come back. And actually, that's really a God's plan, a blessing, because I had finished at Harvard. I would have gotten a job, and I would never came back here and met Bridget. And I would have never had the life that I have now, and the blessings of the life that I have now. And so God is under planning with me all the time. And we have to have enough courage and enough discernment. That's the big thing with it. To determine, or at least to accept, what God has led you to. And I think one of the things in discernment that has to be in discernment is to trust God and trust yourself. So that's about creativity.
Yeah.
What about my hopes for SLUH High?
Yeah.
Well, last time, some years ago, when you had my sons in to talk about what they're doing now, and you had a whole bunch of other people in, alumni who talked about their research and their new jobs and what they're doing. I had a chance, I was invited there, and chance to sit down with your new president. And I asked him a question, and as part of my hope, I said, my hope is that SLUH High goes to 1,500 students. And he said to me, where would we get all these students? Because I really hope that what SLUH High gives should be given to more people. And not just the people who are intellectually advantaged, but also people who are good enough, uh, but can't do it with more development. And my hope, if I had lots of money, is to make SLUH free, because it's not only the education. It is the start of formation for Ignatian spirituality. And if we're going to save the world, it's going to be some kind of spirituality. And it starts when you're young. And you may get away from it a little bit after you graduate from high school and college, but you come back to it. Lots of people do. And so that's my hope. And that's my hope for my sons and my grandkids. It's my hope for the country. I was very, very, very extremely worried about this election. Extremely worried about the virus. And I was worried about the election, not because, I was certainly worried about Trump getting a second election, but I was worried about what kind of country this is. When my parents came here, we came to a country that the four founding fathers set forth. Country that offer opportunities for everyone. That was, at least we're working towards a true democracy, with more people getting to vote and the right to vote. And I was afraid that the process of Trump and so forth was just to turn that dream around, and that America is no longer made up of people with the dream. And I was very heartened by God's gift that there are still enough people in America with that dream, with that vision. The other thing is about the virus, God has allowed the virus to happen for some reason. Okay, and what reason was that? And so I'm thinking that God wanted some kind of social change because of it. And maybe the social change is that when we no longer become a dominant white supremacy country or world, and that we become a collaborative country. And as I notice from all the past, social change always comes at a very high cost. And maybe we are now paying the cost here in this generation, whereas past generations paid it with their lives in World War II, World War I. And so I so welcome for you to do this interview, because the things that an older person can contribute are only their memories and their acquired wisdom. And the acquired wisdom is to know what is worthwhile and what is not. And for you younger persons who is going to see this or hear about this, you have to learn yourself what is worthwhile and what is not. But maybe what was worthwhile to somebody in your earlier generation may become a guide for you. Maybe get you to think about what is worthwhile and what is not. Many people in SLUH, at least not a lot of persons, have made those decisions. I can remember one classmate of mine was actually who came out and was I think he was a language teacher. And he taught it for a while. And he didn't like it. He gave up and became a potter. He became a very successful potter. So think about not just what you're going to do with your education, getting a job, but ask you how you can be a man for others and a man for yourself, and know what is worthwhile and what is not. And I think Ultimately, as a successful life, is to be able to say, I've done what was worthwhile. And I saw the joy and the blessing that God has given me. And that's a successful life. And that's what SLUH is supposed to do for you. At least start you off. And in return, you have to do something for SLUH. And it's just not money. It's actually going back and supporting it in any way you can. And that may be talking about Jesuit education, maybe talking about improving secondary education, maybe working on social justice, maybe working on your corporate job, getting the injustice of income inequality. All of those things that are calling you now. Find what's meaningful for you and have the courage and the persistence to do it.